approval process, right? Approval process is again, a part of the business logic which you can define using declarative approach. You don't need to write any program here, and this will allow you to define a complete automated approval process, which means in case there is an approval required for some record to be saved or for some data, that entire process of the approval can be automated. Got it? So what happens? Let's understand that first. Okay. First of all, the record is created. Now, approval means what? One person needs an approval from the other person, correct? So let's say there is this user who created the record, and here is the other user who needs to approve. This person can be anyone, any user. Has to be a user within your Salesforce. So this can be, let's say, VP of the company or the manager or someone. This person creates this record, and then after creating the record, he needs an approval on this record. So now, what record is being saved here? It can be again anything. It can be an order, it can be a sales invoice. So sometimes companies may have that requirement that certain records, when they are put into the system, they need approval. So in this case, this gentleman can send an approval request to this person. Okay, so an approval request actually goes to the approver. The approver approves it, okay, or rejects it, whatever he wants to do. Now, based on his action, this record gets updated. Okay, so if he approves, the record becomes approved. If he rejects, the record becomes rejected. All right. So this person does not have to manually go to him and take approval for everything. That is not required. So that's how simple it is. Create a record. There is user who creates the record. There is the process defined. The record can be sent for approval to the approver. Now approver approves or rejects, and automatically this entire process happens automatically. Okay, so that's what we are going to do in an approval process. All right. So before defining approval process, again you have to answer a few questions as we did for workflow rule. First question is, which object data you want to get approved? Which object are we talking about? Okay. Is there any entry criteria for approval? Okay. Do you need approval for all the records, or do you need approval for records which meet a certain criteria? Right. So for example, if I need approval for opportunity, so do I need approval for all the opportunities, or is there a logic that only the opportunities where the amount is more than 100,000, those need approval? Fine. So that part needs to be defined in the entry criteria. So which object, then entry criteria, and then the next thing that we have here is who is going to be the approver. Okay. And then you have to define the actions. Okay, so you select which object you are going to deal with, what is the entry criteria for the approval, who is going to be the approver, and then you will define the action. Okay, so actions need to be defined, not you just don't need to define actions as actions. You have to define actions for different steps of the process. This is a complete process. Okay, so this approval process actually includes submission, approval, rejection, recall. Okay, so the request needs to be submitted, then it can either be approved or rejected, or it can be recalled. So these are the different stages. First of all, the approval request needs to be submitted. After that, the approver will either approve or reject it. And in the meanwhile, the person who submitted the request also has the option of recalling it. Alright, so these are different stages. So while you're defining action, you have to define action for all these stages. What action should take place when the record is submitted? What will happen when the record is approved? What will happen when it is rejected? Fine, that way. So that's basically about the approval process. Now let's go to the system and define the process. So let me say I want to define an approval process for all ops with amount less than 5,000 need approval. Okay, I say all the opportunities where the amount is less than 5,000 they need approval, right? Approval from some XYZ user. Alright. So now if I have to just put it into break it into these questions answers, which object are we talking about? Opportunity. What is the entry criteria here? What's the entry criteria?
Amount is less than 5,000.
Amount less than 5. Who's the approver? What is the action? Okay. What action are we going to do? Okay. For action, we have the options available same as the workflow rules. The same email alert, field update, assigning task, outbound message. Those options are available, right? In this case, if you want, to send an email to someone when a record is approved, you can do that. So on submission, you can, do whatever, send email or update field. When it is approved, then also you can send an email saying that congratulations, your request has been approved. When it is rejected, you can send another email. You can define different email templates for different stages. All right. If it sorry, if it is rejected, then you can send a different email with a different email template. So that's something which can be done. All right. Um, Let us go and update the field. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a field called approval status on opportunity. Okay, and this is going to be a pick list, and I will update this field approval status with the process. So when it is submitted, the approval status should automatically become submitted, right? So that whoever is looking into the record can easily understand that what is the current status of the record. All right. So we'll do a field update. Okay. So give me a minute. Let me log in into Salesforce. Okay, so here it is. You log in into Salesforce and then you go to setup, create workflow and approvals, and here you click on approval process. Okay, and the object that we are talking about is opportunity. Okay, create new approval process, use jump start wizard, give a name for your approval process. Okay. This is where you define the entry criteria. Entry criteria is amount less than 5,000. So as I was talking yesterday about the workflow rule, the same way, in case you have decided, you have answered these questions for your before you start creating the approval process, even the most complex approval process you will be able to do it easily. Right. So now we know everything. What is entry criteria? Who is going to be approver? Approver is, let me make it around as approver. See, while you're selecting an approver, you have three options. You can not, I mean, you can just keep the approver thing like that, and the person who is sending or submitting the request for approval, he will manually be able to choose an approver. Okay. So if you feel that no, I don't know who's going to be the approver, the person who submits the record, he should have the option of picking an approver at the time of submission. Then this option first. You can automatically assign an approver using a standard or custom hierarchy field. So you can assign an approver through a hierarchy field also. Okay. So you can actually give it to the manager of the current user, the person who is submitting his manager. So in case you have defined that kind of hierarchy, then it can be sent to that user. Or you can specify a particular user in case you feel that the approval request from everyone are going to go to one single person, then select this. If you think that the person should manually choose who is submitting, then should choose the first one. If you feel that through hierarchy it is controlled, that my approval request will automatically go to my manager and the other person's request will go to someone else, then choose through hierarchy. Got it? So we will pick a specified user. Okay, when you are sending it to a defined user, you have the option of sending it to multiple users also. See, you can add a row here, which means you can add one more user here. So sending the approval request to multiple users. Sometimes you might want to send the request to multiple users. Okay, so when you are sending it to multiple users, when multiple approvers are selected, then you will have either of these two situations. Either you need approval from both of them, or you need approval from any one of them. Correct? So that's how it is. So when you multiple approvers are selected, you have the choice of picking whether to approve or reject based on the first response. As I said, any one of them approves, the record will be considered approved. Or you need the unanimous approval from all selected approvers. So if you think that your requirement is such that you need approval in case multiple approvers are there, let's say uh, the approval request goes to the HR head. You are actually gonna send a job offer to someone and you need an approval, and you need an approval from the manager, team lead, and the HR. Okay. Now You may have two types of requirements. Any one of them approves is fine, or all three of them need to approve. So if all three of them need to approve, then choose the second one. Otherwise, choose the first one. So we just have anyhow we have only one user. We click on save. Okay. Now this is where you have to define action. So you have defined the initial stuff. Only actions need to be defined. And as I told you that for action here, we have to define the action at different stages. Initial submission, approval actions, rejection actions, recall actions. Right? So you have to define the action at different stages. Now, we were talking about updating a field in the action called approval status. So let's do one thing. Let's first of all create this field. Let's go ahead and create this approval status field in opportunity. So we just go to set up customize opportunity fields. Pick list is what we are going to create, right? Okay. Okay. So I'm creating a pick list field with these four options: approved, rejected, pending, and recalled. So the moment request is submitted for approval, it should become pending. When it is approved, it should become approved. If it is rejected, it should be updated to rejected. If the submitter recalls the approval request, then it should become recalled, right? So that's what we plan to do here. By default, I want the value to be pending. So I can say use first value as default value. So by default, if nothing else is updated, automatically it should become pending. So my approval request field is ready. Now in the actions, we are gonna go and update these fields. That's it. So initial submission action, say add new field update. So on submission, what do we want to do? We want to update the field to pending. Right? Just give it a unique name. Which field do you want to update? Approval status. What do you want this to update to get updated to? Pending. Save. So we have defined action for our initial submission. So initial submission action field update pending. Now let's define final approval action. Add new field update. Field that you want to update. In final approval, you need to update the field to approved. Rejection, add new field update. The field that you need to update is approval status, mark it as rejected. Recall action, field update, need to recall. See, okay. So submission, approval, rejection, recall. Right. So now your approval process is ready. You have defined the criteria, you have defined the approver, you have defined the object, and you have also defined the actions for different stages. Correct. Now all that you have to do is you have to activate the approval process. Currently it's not activated. You just have to activate the approval process. Before activating, if you want to have a look at the diagram of the process, you can click here. It will show you the approval process diagram. See, if the entry criteria is met, if it is yes, the process starts. Okay, so it goes to initial submission. After it goes to initial submission, you have the option of recalling it also. Okay. And then from initial submission, it goes to step 1, where it will be either approved or rejected. If it is approved, then the final approval action will take place and the opportunity will get approved. If it is rejected, then the final rejection action will take place and opportunity will get rejected. Correct? So the moment it starts, initial submission action will take place. Here you can also recall it, then this final recall action will take place. Then it goes further, the process starts. If the request is approved, final approval action will take place here and the opportunity will be approved. If it is rejected, then the final rejection action will take place and it will get rejected. So that's the process. Now, the next thing that we have to do is activate it. Till the time you don't activate, it will not work. Go ahead and activate the route. Alright. So let's create an opportunity to test this approval process. Let's create a new opportunity with amount less than 5,000 and see if my approval process is working. I will put it 3,000. Click on save. Okay, the record gets saved. Okay. Now this should go for approval to Revant, right? Revant, you there?
Yes, Jit.
Can you just check your email ID and see if you have received an approval request?
Okay, let me check.
Because he's the approver, whenever an approval process, a record approval process is initiated, he will receive an email, right? The approver, whoever is the approver, receives an email saying that you have an approval request.
I did not get yet. So I'm just waiting.
You might get the email. See, okay. Now, there is one small thing that you guys need to understand here. Approval process does not start automatically. Like workflow rule, the moment you save the record, workflow rule initiates. Approval process does not start immediately. When you save the record, does not mean your approval process has started. Alright? Then how does it start? You have to go manually and submit the request for approval. Submit for approval. Till the time you don't do it, no request will go to the approver. Like he said, he has not received any email. Okay? So just keep this in mind. This is a very common mistake people make. They just create approval process, keep on saving the record, and they think automatically the approval request will go. No. Here you have to submit the request for approval. Whenever you are ready to say, send it for approval, then go ahead and click on the submit for approval button. It's just at the bottom of this page. Submit for approval. Okay. And once you submit the record for approval, your record gets locked, which is logical, also makes sense. Once I have submitted some record for approval, then it should get locked so that the approver sees the information which I used or which was there at the time of submission. I don't have that option of editing or something like that. Correct? Okay. Now the moment you say submit for approval, it will show you the status. It's submitted, it is pending, and it has been assigned to this user. Levant, now go and check if you have received the email. Okay, very good. Now, I will just make you the presenter for a minute. Can you just show us how does that email look? So, how the person is going to submit the request for approval, that we have already seen. Now, the next what we are going to look into is how the person who receives the request is going to approve. Okay, how the other person is going to approve the request.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can. Just go to the mail. Yeah. So this is the request that he has got. So see, the email which is sent to the approver, that has the link. The approver has the option of clicking on this link, and from there he can approve or reject it. Right? Alternatively, the approver can also see the approval request on his home page. So if he is logged in into his Salesforce account, he can see the approval request, the pending approval request on the home page also. We see. Okay, now go to the home page. This is where you came from, the link, right? Now go to the home page. Go to home. Scroll down. items to approve. See, so the approver will receive an email with the link where he can click and then he can go and approve or reject the thing, or he will be able to do the same from the home page. Okay. And in under home page there is an option called items to approve, and all the pending approval request for a certain approver will be displayed there. So he can actually do it from either way. Right. Let's go to the email and click on the link, or from here you can approve or reject whichever you want. Just approve or reject to any of those. So you have the option of writing a comment and then approving it or rejecting it. That's it. Okay. Now I come back to the submitters screen. Come back to my screen. Thank you, Revan. Okay. So we come back to the submitters screen. Now initially the record when it was submitted for approval, the status was pending. Correct. Now the approver has approved the request. Let me refresh the data and see. Yes. Now it shows as approved. Has been approved. And you can scroll down here to check the approval history also. So initially it was submitted and then it was approved on this date at this time by this person. Right? So this is where you will be able to see the entire approval history. Alright. And once the record is approved, the record remains locked. Once the record is approved, the record remains as locked. Why? Again, the same concept. Once someone has approved, let's say he has approved it on $3,000, and if I go and edit and make it $1,000, so that will not be correct, right? So once it has been approved, then the person who created the record does not have the option to go and edit it. Alright. Okay. Now, so that's how we define an approval process. There's one more thing that we're going to talk. That's approving it, approving through email. Approving through email. What is this approving through email? Approving through email is a concept where the approver can just reply back to the email which he receives, the approval request where he receives. He can just reply back to that email, and based on his reply, the record will be approved or rejected. Fine. So sometimes it may happen that the approver is getting too many approval requests, and he might not want to log in into the system to approve and all that stuff every time. So there is an option of approving through the email itself. How is that done? Okay, you just have to make a small settings change. You have to go to setup. Under setup, you have to go to create, then go to workflow and approvals, and process settings. Yeah. So under workflow and approval, you just click on the process automation settings. And you have to select this one. Enable email approval response. And click on save. That's it. Right? Now let me submit the same request. Now the email approval response is enabled, which means the approver will be able to respond to the email to approve or reject. Let's see if that works. So I'll go to the same record, or I can create a new record and send an approval request again, submit it for approval. The record got created. Click on submit for approval. Okay, it has been submitted for approval. Revant, can you again check your email if you have received a request?
I got it.
Okay, we'll make you presenter again. Yes. See, now the email body is different. If you guys read it now, so there is this message which says that you can click on this link to approve or reject, or you can just reply to this email, reply to this email with one of these words in the first line. So approve, approved, yes, reject, rejected, no. So if he puts approve, approved, or yes in the first line and replies back, the record will be approved. If he says reject, rejected, or no in the first line, the record will be rejected. Correct? In case you want to add some comment, the way while we were approving from the link, we had an option of putting a comment. In case you want to add some comment, that should be written in the second line. If replying via email, you can also add comments in the second line. Correct? So just reply to this. Yes. Okay. Send it. Okay. So let's come back and see whether it got approved or not, the record. So this time he has not, done it on the Salesforce. He has just replied to that email. Currently, the record is pending. The status of the record is pending. Refresh it. See, it got approved. And if I go here, see, this is the comment that he added. Correct? That has also come. Clear? So that's how your approval through email, approval response to email will work. Email response will actually control the approval process. So this is also a useful function because a lot of times people who receive a lot of approval requests, they might not be willing to log in into Salesforce again and again just for doing the approval, because that process needs logging into Salesforce. This is just a matter of writing a yes or no and then just replying back. That's it. Okay. But the problem with this approach is that the approver might not have all the information available to see about that record in this particular approach. Okay, so why the approver might want to log in into Salesforce to see what exactly has been entered. Right? For example, now when you see that he has received an email request, that email request just has a link, correct? And if it only has a link, how will he understand, how will the approver understand that what exactly is saved in the record and on what basis he's actually going to approve, right? So in this kind of situation, if you are wanting the person to respond without logging into Salesforce, you will have to provide some information, some basic information about the record in the email body itself. Okay, so while you create the email template, then if you create the email template, you have to make sure that you are putting some information of the record in the email body itself. Okay, like opportunity amount. So this dynamic field can be put from here. You can select what all fields you want to put in the email body. Okay. So this area will show the amount of the opportunity, and then you can put something like name of the account. All right. So if you define this kind of an email body, then what will happen? The person will be able to see the record details in the email itself, and he can then go ahead and approve or reject right from the mail response. Right? Does not need to actually log in into the Salesforce. All right. Now let me know if anyone has a question or doubt.